Hey everybody, J-Dub here, along with Troy, and we are here for a new type of podcast for Gamers Haven, and where we're going to talk about games, sometimes we're going to talk about comics, sometimes we're going to talk about film, and we're actually going to squish a couple of those in together tonight. So it's going to be talking about comics and film, and
seeing as this summer in particular is such a cornucopia of summer superhero movies, we thought we would discuss that and kind of give our opinion on what we thought of some of the stuff and go throughout the history of comics to the big screen, little screen. I mean, a lot of us grew up and watched the TV shows as a kid, Batman, Spider-Man, all that stuff. So
yeah, it's actually kind of interesting as I doing a little bit of research for this show. Gosh, all the way from the 1800s, you have different comics, actually comic strips at the time, having been made into, at the time not TV, but into even shorts or films for that, which is really surprising that they would take, that they have such a long history.
I think a lot of people would be surprised how much comics have been a part of our culture. I know in the last probably 20 or 30 years they've really come on strong. But if they go that far back to the 1800s, that shows you they've had a lasting impression. So.
Yeah. One of the ones that I researched was Ali Sloper, which was a long-time comic book character at the time, and for 30 years it says that he was in feature films and merchandising for,
Sure.
in the late 1800s. He started out in 1884. So. And then you get things like the Katzenjammer Kids, Barney Google. We're dating a couple of you who actually might know this. Carl, I'm looking at you. Little Annie Rooney, which was a Little Orphan Annie rip-off. And everybody knew it, but they still loved the tale. And Mary Pickford, one of my wife's favorite actresses, actually portrayed her in a movie in 1925 in a silent film.
Wow.
Yeah. Completely.
And if you got your 30s and 40s newspaper strips of Flash Gordon and Buck Rogers, and we know those have been turned into movies and TV shows. But it does show you that, like I said, comics nowadays has become such a huge industry and such a huge business. But this is where it's got its start.
Yeah. Blondie. A ton. You guys have read Blondie, but oh my gosh. Tons of movies. Over 15 movies, Blondie movies, and Dagwood, based off of this, weekly and Sunday cartoon, and then of course Superman,
Sure.
animated.
That Max Fleischer stuff, which is just unreal.
Yeah. So, when did we get this stigma of comic book movies being bad? We've had, over 100 years.
Sure.
Of comic book movies, and yet now all of a sudden we've got these are bad.
Well, the funny thing is, a lot of people, myself included, and I'm sure you enjoy them too, the old serials. Shazam, Batman. There is a Batman serial out there, and I highly recommend it. There is a Captain America one too. But those got your start too, and we all know that in the movies back in the day had the serials before, and I wish that they did that still. Mm-hmm. So, but like Justin was saying, yeah, nowadays, you're a comic book collector, and so you get labeled. And I know that now comic books can be either geek or, pardon the phrase, chic, because Comic-Con has become such a, we know what Comic-Con used to be, and now it's been turned into where I'm an actor, and that's where I'm going to debut my movie or something in my trailer. But like I said, it's just, I've always been a fan of the comics, and it's nice to see, like we talked about in the beginning, was this summer has just been great, and I think it's showing people that comics can be good. They can show good characters, good storylines, and stuff like that, and it doesn't have to have, like you said, that stigmata. So,
well, and stigma, stigmata.
That's a totally different episode.
Some of our hands are bleeding. Well, that's going into the Alan Moore, Neil Gaiman range there. So. What would you say was your first comic book movie that you saw?
I'd be dating myself. I said I didn't see the original Batman, Adam West, Burt Ward. You know, when we watched the TV series, yes, I'm guilty of it, but they made the movie, and I think for a lot of people that was probably the first superhero movie you saw on the big screen, or at least in a movie format. And you know, as a kid, we probably loved it. As an adult, it is total cheese, but you know,
completely.
But I think it definitely did. You know, it was one of the first ones out there. I think in terms of now, I grew up in I grew up in the '70s, and I saw the Captain America movie or Captain America TV series with Reb Brown. Yes, I am dating myself with that one. There was the Nicholas Hammond Spider-Man TV series where he shot a rope. It wasn't webbing; it was a rope. Then there was obviously the Incredible Hulk TV series with Lou Ferrigno and Bill Bixby. But I think in terms of you really want to nail it down as to what was the first superhero movie that really knocked it out of the park for everybody, that would be 1989's Batman by Tim Burton. I think that one really kind of set at the time, set the bar.
What about Superman, though? Superman
I forgot about the Superman movies. I do apologize. I enjoyed them for what they were as a kid. And yeah, you're right. That would be the one to kind of prove to everybody that a man could fly. So,
but you know, then you do have the Batman, which really, I mean, because we had Superman 2, Superman 3, which really started to go downhill. Superman 4, complete trash. And then it seemed like people were staying away from it.
Hollywood got a little shy of them because they realized, like Justin said, or you said, 4 was, by that time, they had run out of ideas. And even Christopher
Reeve.
Thank you. Long day. Christopher Reeve was kind of wanting to move on to something else. And, it had that time gap. And then they did, it's 89 was Batman. And then after that, then you had, like, Roger Corman's Fantastic Four. You had the Captain America movie. And if you can find it, it's like the Holy Grail. It wasn't a good movie, but it was the fact that somebody attempted it. And then, we started getting to the point where people started... Comics, I think, really hit after... I think the reason Batman did so well is because of The Dark Knight Returns. When that came out in 86, it turned his, genre completely around.
96.
86. 86. We actually have it right up here.
Oh, you mean the comic?
The comic. The comic.
Okay.
But it turned Batman in from the smiling, happy of the 70s and early 80s to the dark, brooding one that we all know now again. And I really enjoyed that. But like you said, the Superman movies they deserve a lot of credit. They do. The first one, at least the first two. They showed that a man could fly, and they showed you really cool special effects for the time. And as a kid, I never thought I'd see a superhero on a big screen.
Yeah. And
when they did the Superman and the Batman, it's cool to see it. It really is. Whether you like the movies or not, I never thought I'd see these on a big screen.
When I saw Batman in '89, I completely remember coming home and going through the newspaper, and Roger Ebert gave it 1 star, one or 1.5 stars. And 1 week later, when the box office went out, and I had this in my little scrapbook, he gave it 4 stars.
Sure.
So, the cretin backtracked on himself. It was like, son of a... You could have at least had the decency to stick to your morals.
And like you said, after the Superman movies, they realized, okay, it only takes one bad movie for Hollywood to kind of get spooked.
Yeah.
And we've seen that with historical movies. We've seen that with different type of genres. But then when Batman came along, it kind of fueled the fire. There's Marvel's Punisher. Before Thomas Jane, there was Dolph Lundgren. Yeah. And he made that one. And, it was interesting to see where, they had talked about, DC kind of led it with the Batman, and then, Marvel moved along. Punisher was 1989 as well, and then we didn't see another one again until 2004.
Yeah, and actually, I'm actually kind of a fan of the 2008 Warzone Punisher. I liked it. I think that actually brought a little bit more realism into the Punisher. Sure, some of the story was schlocky, but hey, it got my boy out there, and it made him look a lot more realistic,
sure.
Especially since he trained with special forces.
Yep.
Well, now you've got somebody who's not just big and brash. He's a special forces guy, double tapping people. Oh, there's a corpse.
I'm a big Ray Stevenson fan. If you have not seen him in the Rome miniseries on HBO, highly recommend it.
Yeah.
Great actor. I'm almost forgetting that we're talking about superheroes, And we're forgetting one of the ones that made the big screen. He's not a superhero, but it was a comic from the novels. Is the Conan series?
Yeah, yeah.
The Conan series spawned. Everybody's seen the Conan with Arnold, and we all like Conan the Barbarian, and you can have your own opinions about Conan the Destroyer. But it launched Red Sonja and stuff like that. And now these movies are being remade again. Conan is due out at the end of this summer. Red Sonja is due next year.
Really? I didn't know a Red Sonja.
They're doing a Red Sonja one. At least that's the last I had heard. It was supposed to be done through Robert Rodriguez, but I could be wrong on that. But I know that there was plans to do that. So it's interesting because they're not superheroes, but I remember reading as a kid the Conan comics.
Yeah.
So again, those made the big screen too. And like I said, now there was talk of, if we really want to go push it, the Spider-Man series when it came out. When the first one came out, they did a really good job. The only thing I did not like about the series or the movie I should say, was the Green Goblin's costume. I love the Green Goblin as a villain. I just didn't like the whole Power Rangers look that he had.
Yeah.
I wish I would have had more and I hate to say it, use an old rubber mask, steal it from Scooby-Doo days, In my opinion, up until recently, Spider-Man 2 was my favorite comic book movie of all time. I think they really did a good job with it, and I think the gentleman who played, I can't think of his name, who played Dr. Octopus was amazing. He did a really, really good job. And it really showed the trials and tribulations of Peter Parker as being a superhero while trying to balance his normal life. But,
But then we got soured from the third one.
Exactly. Exactly.
And so it really seems like to do this, you have to have. Well, what do you think went wrong in there? I mean, was it a script? Were they trying to push too fast?
I think they're guilty of what DC does sometimes. Too many villains. I like the Sandman. I like the special effects, but everybody was clamoring for Venom. I myself, I know I'll get kicked out of certain comic book circles. I'm not a Venom fan. I've never have been. But if you're gonna do him right. I think they rushed it, and it just kind of. It didn't work, and I think it could kind of, if you watch the movie, it seemed like almost the cast wasn't into it, and then it was the end of the series because now Tobey Maguire does not want to do it. Now they are relaunching Spider-Man. That happens next year. We'll see. I enjoyed Tobey as it. I thought he did a good job. I thought the special effects were good. I think the best casting in that whole series was the guy who played J. Jonah Jameson. J.K. Simmons was amazing. But getting back to your question, I just think it was too much, crammed together, and sometimes it hurts. It hurt the Batman movies later on, where they put too many villains or too much emphasis on the villains, not enough emphasis on our hero. So
it almost sounds like, if you ever seen the Jay and Silent Bob Strike Back, when they go to stop the Bluntman and Chronic movie. They asked, well, what about that? And they make a mention after X-Men hit big, people started grabbing up superhero comics left and right and trying to put them out. Do you actually think that that's something that actually happened, or because it sounds pretty accurate to me?
I could give it.
I think since the X-Men first came out, when was that?
That was
X-Men 2000.
2000.
That's when we started to see the rush of comics.
And I agree. I think what is the X-Men kind of, for the X-Men fans, I never thought I'd see X-Men at all. To me, it was always going to be a cartoon and a comic. When we see them on the big screen, it was really well done. I liked the first movie. The second one was probably my favorite. Wasn't a huge fan of the third one. Wolverine, I did not like it at all. But I will recommend this to the fans out there. Please go see X-Men First Class. I enjoyed that one very much this summer. It took me by surprise. It almost seemed like someone read a comic and actually put together an idea for a story. And it was kind of cool because it was an idea that I wasn't sure was going to work, but it was really good. The gentleman who plays Magneto, unreal. He steals the movie. So
and Kevin Bacon. When Jennifer first thought of Kevin Bacon in a movie, and then I saw him. High class acting, and you get to see why he's a high lister.
Sure.
And I think this actually brought him into more circles now.
Sure.
I mean, after this movie, his ability to do accents.
Sure.
Holy crap! His German accent was amazing. His Russian accent was amazing. He just had such a and then his acting.
Sure.
He played Sebastian Shaw, and he made me believe it. I did not think he could do it.
The Spider-Man movies were responsible for getting X-Men up onto the big screen because of the success of the first one, of the first Spider-Man movie, and the second one. Then you're like, okay, good. Now we have, we can do this. Now, obviously, Marvel had some misses. I know a lot of people out there probably did not enjoy the Daredevil movie. Daredevil is one of my favorite characters. Did I like the movie? If you're gonna watch it, watch the director's cut. It adds an additional 30 minutes to the movie, but it makes the movie much better.
Really?
Ben Affleck probably wouldn't have been my first choice, but I like the fact that I was going to see The Man Without Fear on the big screen. But the X-Men movies came along, and it was just super well done, and the special effects. The problem with the X-Men movies is everyone has a favorite X-Men team, so you're never going to have them all on the same, on the screen at the same time. I myself am a Chris Claremont, John Byrne fan.
Yep.
But I'm sure we could pull somebody out of the audience, and they would be Stan Lee, Jack Kirby, 60s version. I'm sure there's millions of people yelling, "Hey, what about Gambit? What about the team?" That's another version. The thing is, what I did like about X-Men 3 was the original team was in the movie at one point. They may not be all on the screen at the same time, but the original 5 X-Men were in the movie at the time. What were some of the best parts by the X-Men movie? Obviously, X-Men 2, Nightcrawler. I think if you ask most people, even the average Joe who doesn't know a lot about comics, they will tell you the blue guy was cool.
Alan Cumming did a really good job.
Yep.
And I don't think some people I had heard made it think that his acting was a little bit cheesy, a little bit hokey, a little bit over the top. But one, that's partly Alan Cumming. Two, I don't think that was too far from
I don't think so either.
Nightcrawler. Kurt Wagner was very over the top. He was very theatrical, and so I think that he portrayed him fairly well.
I agree. In the third one, I guess I'd be dismissive if I didn't say the most popular person in the X-Men movies, if you ask anybody, is Hugh Jackman. I really think he does a great job of playing Logan. Okay, there's a difference. Wolverine is a great character, but I prefer Logan. That's who he is. Now, I wasn't sure when I first heard he was going to be cast. I'm like, really? Because there was always the Glenn Danzig rumors out there that he was going to be.
Oh, yes.
But I think Hugh Jackman did a good job. I think, unfortunately, he might have done it too well because everybody expected him to be in every movie. Now, on the other note, I think Patrick Stewart did a great job as Professor X. Perfect. I think, unfortunately, he was written a bad character because this is one of the most powerful mutants in the world, and they always seemed like they had him. It was almost like the old Super Friends where somebody could pull a gun on him and he was stopped by simple little things, and I wasn't sure what was going on. I love Patrick Stewart, but I'm like, you're wasting his talent. Sorry, go ahead.
A little bit of that, actually, I think maybe they tried to fix in the third movie where they got into a fight. The two kids got into a fight, and then he froze the entire mall.
Yeah.
Spoiler alert if you haven't seen it. But.
And then I think that in the third one, Beast was my favorite character. I think you got Kelsey Grammer, who we all know sounds very intellectual, and then you've got the blue fur. Now, some people might think it looks cornball, but it's a comic book movie. What do you want?
Reading St. Crispin's Day to them, offset, to get them inspired.
I know we've got a lot of other ones to talk about. I'll try and wrap up the X-Men one here. X-Men Wolverine, I thought was a great idea if they would have done the Frank Miller graphic novel, The Wolverine Story.
Okay.
That would have been much better. Now, that's what they're planning on doing for the next movie. That's the next one scheduled.
Oh.
Is the Wolverine Story with Frank Miller. Highly, highly recommended if you've never read that. It's the first time he fights the Hand, and that's where you find out Logan can love someone other than Jean Grey. It's an amazing, amazing story, and that's what they're planning to do for the next movie. Having said that, the Wolverine story, again, the movie, I thought they put too much into it. They put Gambit in it, just have Gambit in it, and a lot of fans didn't like that. I mean, obviously the non-Gambit fans.
And I'm not a big Gambit fan, and I really think that they wasted him and overdid it.
And if you're going to do the Blob, he's CGI. Don't make him look like a Punch-Out character, because that's what he looked like in the boxing ring. I'm going, really? He's supposed to be huge. And then finally, X-Men First Class, they took a chance and went with a younger version of the team, and I think they did it. They recast people. James McAvoy was amazing as Professor X.
Amazing.
And like I said, Kevin Bacon nailed Shaw. The only thing I didn't really care was Emma Frost being played by January Jones, I should say, because it basically just felt like she was playing Betty Draper from Mad Men. So, but again, highly recommend to see X-Men. But again, I think, like Justin said, X-Men really kind of showed that comic book movies could be cool, even if you weren't a comic book fan. You know, I like to term it as the average Joe, because not all people out there read comics. But you could go to the movie and see it. It's almost like the Lord of the Rings series. You didn't have to read the books to understand the movies, and that, I like how they kind of adjusted that. So
well, and let's even talk about movies that were made off of comic books that people didn't expect. Red.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
My wife didn't believe that it was based off of a comic book, and we actually had to go in, and she says, "No, this is made afterwards." And it took the comic book guy to actually go, "No, it was made before."
Red was one of my surprise hits late last year. I went and saw that, and I was like, "Oh my god, this is such a fun movie." The Losers, same thing. Not a lot of people know that's a comic book movie, but it has a lot of action and guns, so people won't saw it. But it is based on a comic strip or comic series.
Tom Hanks was in a movie that was based off of a So the Road Perdition. People didn't realize it was made from a comic book.
And it was funny because Alan Moore, whether you love him or like him or hate him or whatever, he is responsible for, in my opinion, the best comic ever written. I know that's a huge statement, but I am a huge fan of the Watchmen series. I love the fact that this team never existed anywhere else except for that book, and yet it showed you, this came out around the same time as The Dark Knight Returns, it shows you that superheroes weren't always squeaky clean. They did have personal problems. And I know a lot of people say, well, I don't want my superheroes to have problems, I want to do the escapism. I totally understand that. But there's only so much of the, sugary, sweet superhero stuff you can take. And the Watchmen showed you these guys could have personality and feelings and emotions and just real lives, and more. And again, another one that was a major success, in my opinion, on the big screen, V for Vendetta.
Yes.
Was unreal.
A big one. And I don't even think that they advertised that it was based off of the comic for a lot of them. People just really enjoyed the film, and then later on they found out, whoa, wait, this is made from a comic? Oh, I wonder what the comic was, because I guess sales of V went up. Really?
Another example recently for a lot of you out there is 300. 300 is a graphic novel done by Frank Miller, and then it found its way onto the big screen. And in my opinion, it was one of the best taken straight from the book to the screen without skipping a beat. And in the same breath, I would say Sin City. The Sin City movie came from the comics directly. I mean, without even, they didn't have to change a thing.
So you almost even see that Sin City could have been one of the first frame for frames.
Yeah, I think they're what's the word I'm thinking for when the movie's good? They're I can't think of the word, but anyway, they just took it straight. They just showed you the comic and filmed it, because that's exactly what they did for 300 and for Sin City, and in a lot of terms, Watchmen. They did the same thing.
Yeah, so. I remember there were several sites on the internet where they showed side by side of scenes from the Watchmen and that. So let's go over some of the comics that have been turned into movies this year.
Sure.
What was first?
Thor came out on May 6th, I believe, 2011. I, in my opinion, really enjoyed this. I never thought I would see Thor, because I wasn't even sure how they were going to handle the whole gods thing and stuff like that. And I always liked Thor as a character, but I think they did a good job. It was enough, in my opinion, it was enough family summer fun and enough comic book mixed together to keep everybody interested in the theater. The scenes where he's on Earth were humorous and fun, and where he meets Jane Foster. The scenes where he's in Asgard, I thought that was really, really well done. The gentleman who played him, Chris Hemsworth, great job. The man who steals the movie, obviously, is Loki. I mean, if you've seen the movie, you know what I'm talking about. But I thought it was really, really well done. And it was another one of the Marvel, what I like to call string movies, that started with, we haven't talked about yet, Iron Man. Iron Man was basically, and I'll make this quick, Iron Man was Marvel's last attempt. They had started their own studios. If Iron Man had not hit, they were going to start, I heard they were not going to do any movies because Ghost Rider had bombed. before it.
I wanted Ghost Rider to work, and I actually really wanted Nicolas Cage to work because he's a huge comic book fan, and for him to actually get cast in something, other than Kick-Ass, besides Kick-Ass, where he was a little over the top, but I really wanted it to work, and I think the script, once again, it was one of those things they tried to push it out too fast, and the guy didn't read what Ghost Rider was.
Again, a movie that had really cool eye candy special effects, but the story was weak. And Marvel knew that going in with Iron Man. Now, I loved Iron Man as a kid. I was a big fan of the John Romita, Bob Layton years, and I really enjoyed the movie when it hit the screen, and it did so well that it greenlighted Incredible Hulk. I'm losing my train of thought. The Avengers movie, the Captain America movies, everything to follow. It was a string that they greenlighted all this stuff because they had a hit. And it's well, now it wraps up next year with the Avengers movie. It comes out next year, summer 2012. And Captain America is in 2 weeks, or next week, I should say. So we're getting back to the Iron Man thing real quick. Thor was part of that. He was part of that whole string because you were trying to put together the Avengers team. So you start with Iron Man, you have Cap, you have Thor, you've got your big three right there, and then everybody else can be kind of a supporting cast. Iron Man, amazing. Iron Man now is my favorite superhero movie, I think, of all time. I think I'd have to say that in terms of capturing what the comic was. I know I said that about Watchmen, but I think more people are familiar with the Marvel characters, and I think they did a great job. I think Robert Downey Jr. was amazing as Tony Stark, playing the cocky, arrogant billionaire who realizes, hey, he has more to offer. Iron Man 2, good. Not as good as the first one, but it was still good. I love what Marvel has done with the movies at the end. If you don't know what I'm talking about, stay through the trailers, and there'll be a mini scene that leads into the next movie. They did it in every one of them up to this point, so when you go see Captain America, make sure you stay through the credits. There will be one for the Avengers. So.
Very excited for that. So Thor, what do you think about the casting?
I think they did a good job. I think, I'll be honest, I don't know if, as much as I love Anthony Hopkins, I don't know if he would have been my first choice for Odin. I was thinking more of Brian Blessed, and if you know who that is, that shows you the much of a geek I am. I think the guy who played Loki was good. I think I like Natalie Portman. I always have. I've loved her ever since The Professional. But I think she was good as Jane Foster. I like the chemistry between the two of them. The only thing I did not like about the casting was they had Thor being kind of an arrogant brat in the beginning, and I think he changed over to be good a little too quick for me in the movie. That was about my only thing I really didn't care about. But I love the fact that the S.H.I.E.L.D. agent from the Iron Man movies was in there. I love that, and I love the fact that they keep that whole thing going. So I thought it was a good job casting. I think the guy who played Hundo was amazing. The keeper of the gate was unreal. So, what did you like about it?
Actually, I haven't seen it.
Oh, okay.
So after Thor,
the next one was in terms of superheroes or comics, was X-Men First Class. And I went and saw that, and I went with some friends, and I wasn't sure what to expect. And I came out of there, and I really, really enjoyed it. And that was the general consensus of people that walked out of the theater. And they say, there are some people who say, well, where's Wolverine? Well, this is a little bit. Now, there are some really cool scenes in the movie. I highly recommend it. There's a major, major guest appearance, which is really cool. I loved how they worked that in. And it was really good. And it kind of breathed new life into the franchise of the X-Men movies. Because by X-Men 3, I think it had run its course. It had kind of run out a little bit of steam. So this one kind of breathed new life into, like Justin said earlier, some of the acting was dead on. Guys, I wasn't sure when I'm like, Sebastian Shaw, Kevin Bacon, really? And all of a sudden, he did a great job, And, James McAvoy, he puts his own spin on Xavier. He really does. He shows you that Xavier he's not just the boorish professor. He has a fun side to him.
And it made it look like he was excited about teaching.
Yeah.
As much as I enjoyed Patrick Stewart, he was kind of like a tired professor, whereas this one, it was a guy just getting into the teaching profession.
Sure.
If you can even call it that, because he really wasn't anything else. He had just gotten his doctorate. So But yes, his fervent for and his enjoying to see people do this.
Another person who steals it is the actress. I'm sorry, actress who plays Mystique, Raven.
Brilliant.
She
and
is
beautiful.
really well done. And like I said, they come up with some of the characters that we know, and then they make some that we don't know. But I think they did a really good job. I think it was good. It's a good another, like I want to call it, a foundation that they want to do another one, which I've heard they're going to anyway. And then after X-Men was Green Lantern. Great visual effects, great eye candy. I thought they suffered from what DC has suffered from before, which killed the Batman series back in the days of the Joel Schumacher genre. Mm-hmm. Too many villains, too many stories, not enough time to tell all these ideas. This is a major character, his first movie, and you try to put everything into one. I think the reason Warner Brothers did that and DC Comics did it was they weren't sure if they were going to get a sequel. So they tried to put everything into one movie. Like I said, visually it's great, but it was just too much.
Which is a shame because there were three characters growing up that I absolutely loved. Magneto, and I still hold that he's not a villain. He's not a villain.
He's an anti-hero.
He's an anti-hero. He's not a villain. The Flash, and the third one was always Green Lantern. Those were my three. And with Captain America coming up when I got into junior high and high school, but before that it was always Magneto, Flash, and Green Lantern. And so to finally see Green Lantern, yeah, it just the effects. I don't think the movie could have been made before now because of the special effects. It brought life into that, and that just, as much as I hate the story about too many villains, it was beautiful to watch.
I will say this for our older listeners, and like Justin touched on, if you're a fan of Tales of the Green Lantern Corps, when they're on a training him or just you see those things, that could have been the whole movie for me.
Oh, yeah.
Seeing all the other Green Lanterns in the galaxy and their stories and stuff like that, to see Kilowog, live, was amazing.
And look good.
And Sinestro. Sinestro was played by Mark Strong, the gentleman who played the bad guy in the Sherlock Holmes movie. Unreal. He nailed it. He did such a good job of capturing that arrogance. I'm a lantern. I can do this. We know what happens to Sinestro, but I think he did a really good job. When I first heard Ryan Reynolds was being cast, I'll be honest, I was disappointed. I like Ryan Reynolds in certain things, but I wasn't seeing him as Hal Jordan. My choice would have been Nathan Fillion from the Firefly and Serenity series, with a little, because I've always thought as Hal as being a little bit older than other superheroes.
Yeah, they've shown him
tough
sometimes with the white.
that was the Reed Richards thing with him. Yeah. But like Justin said, growing up with the Green Lantern, I love the comics, and if you like that as part of your childhood, then the movie definitely has scenes for you. Carol Ferris, the love interest, we all know I'm not giving anything away, this is in the comics, she becomes a supervillain. But she's always been Hal's love, and I just didn't see Blake Lively portraying that, so.
Well, it was like in the you expect to see somebody in the future becoming a villain. Billy D. Williams as Harvey Dent. I was like, part of me was like, oh, he's gonna be Two-Face in the future.
Sure.
No.
The thing is, I don't want to.
Then it wasn't good.
I know we strayed away from the Green Lantern thing, but Justin brings up a great point. The Batman movie, the first two by Tim Burton, brought that dark feel, and I liked it. Then Schumacher took over, and it was almost, and I hate to say it, it almost turned it back into the '60s campy feel.
Bat credit card.
Well, and then the Holy Rusted Metal. Now, I did like how they did that, but it got too comical. When you see George Clooney smash through a window, falls in front of Mr. Freeze and says, "Hi, Freeze, I'm Batman," and he's smiling. Batman has never smiled in like 60 years, okay? So I'm like, okay, I almost got up and walked out of the theater at that point. But it was just, and it's bad when your lead actor, after the movie's over, apologizes to the fans. Now, I'm going to jump on a side note here and I know I've really been pounding the topic of Batman. If you want to see some of the best Batman stuff ever done, get the animated series from the early 90s.
Yes.
The Batman animated series I cannot recommend enough because it captures the feel of the old 40s, but it's modern. And to see Mark Hamill, yes, Luke Skywalker, do the Joker, so good.
To do it perfectly. I mean, you wouldn't expect it. But yeah, then we get into the the Green Lantern. We've got the so many good things going for it.
Sure.
So many surprises. People not anticipating a good performance from Ryan Reynolds and getting one.
Sure.
And then just to have such a bad story. Now, I agree with several of my friends. It was made for kids. Kids will love it, and they do love it.
Sure.
And the toy market that they'll make from that will more than cover the loss that they make from the movie. When does a movie stop? And just on a side little thing, because this brings up a good point that I wanted to tackle. When does a movie, a comic book movie, how much do you put in for the kids? How much do you put in for the hardcore comic book people?
And that's actually a good question. And I think Justin and I had talked about this one other time. You've got to balance it. You've got to give the fans who've made the comics famous, the people who've been reading for years, but you've also got to get the average person with his family coming in so it's worth their time as well. And it's always been a balancing act. Hollywood has always had trouble where they go, yeah, we'll make a comic movie, then they kind of make their own version. Case in point is Fantastic Four. It was owned by Fox. I mean, Marvel owns the team, but Fox had the rights to the movie, and as cool as it was, because the Roger Corman one was awful, it was weak. And now, unfortunately, Fox still has the rights to the movie rights. If they give it up, Marvel's going to try and redo it again. First thing you need to do, cast the Thing as CGI. He has to be CGI. It's got to be big. No offense to Michael Chiklis, I think he was a great actor. I think and he was a fan of the character.
Yeah.
It's just, I didn't get the idea he could lift really heavy things with the size. But getting back to what you were saying, you've got to have that balance, And I think like Justin, Thor is a good family fun movie for superheroes. It's got enough, might be a little bit less, not so much for the kids. I think X-Men First Class, you might have to watch that too, but it definitely keeps you entertained. Like he said, Green Lantern is definitely for the kids. It's got all the nice shiny stuff on the screen. They're going to see it and stuff like that. But I just wish they would have spent a little bit more time on the story or tried to limit it down to not as many villains. Yeah. Parallax is a major villain in the Green Lantern storyline. Don't put him in the first movie. Wait. Sinestro is always going to be the main bad guy, but if you're going to do something, don't try to cram too many people into one idea.
Allude to it, just don't throw it in there.
Exactly.
And then after Green Lantern?
The next one is Captain America, which opens July 22nd. I myself I'm waiting hugely. The one thing I do not like about this is I think I've seen too many trailers. I spoiled myself and saw too many. I wanted to be a surprise, but I've always enjoyed Cap as a character. I'm a big World War II historical buff, if those of you who know me out there. So I love the whole pulp superhero feel. And I think that they really did it. Joe Johnston has done, he's a good director. I know he got bad reviews and it was a bad movie for The Wolfman. But if you've seen any of the trailers for Captain America, I think he redeems himself quite well in this aspect. So
yeah, I'm so excited for this. Leading up to it, hints in Iron Man 2 that just made it, astounding. And for the lead actor to even go to, he's played comic book heroes. How many comic book movies has he been in?
He played Johnny Storm in the Fantastic Four movies, and if he's going to be cocky and arrogant, it works. And he was in a couple of movies. He was in Push, and it was some other. But he always kind of played the same character.
Yeah, he was in Scott Pilgrim as well.
Yeah, Scott Pilgrim, which highly recommend that one too.
Highly recommend.
And he knew there was pressure on him to be Captain America without the arrogance. And I had some friends say, I kind of liked you. I says, no, Captain America was never arrogant. He was a person who loved his country, wanted to do his part, and we all know the story, but I think from the trailers I've seen, Chris Evans really nails it. He really goes, okay, I'm going to put myself in this. If you've seen the scenes where he's pre-Captain America, I think those are going to be the best parts of the movie.
Yeah. Flawless. I looked for problems between the once again, technology has gotten so good. The only way you could do it, I think, without the CGI, would have been to have gotten a little schmuck and then cancel cancel filming or film other stuff for 3 months.
You'd almost have to do like they did with Tom Hanks and Castaway.
Push that guy.
Film the scenes where he was heavy set, then stop filming, wait 4 months for him to lose all the weight, then come back and refilm.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, so that would be the way. But it looks like they've got a decent story, and from what I've heard, about 80-85% of the movie being World War II,
Yeah.
loving that.
yes.
Absolutely.
There's no
loving
way you can do Captain America without doing his origin in World War II. There are going to be some changes as to the storyline. They are mixing him with the mainstream Captain America with the Ultimates Captain America. I have no problem with that. I think it's gonna be cool because they have Bucky at his side. There's only one villain he can ever go up against, and it's gonna be the Red Skull. And I'm not giving anything away. It's Hugo Weaving, folks. And if you've seen V for Vendetta, you know he's gonna be amazing. So
Yeah, and it's just it's gonna be a really great. And this is one of those that I have to do a midnight showing if
Sure.
you can. I mean, it's yeah.
I know they're gonna
just
get my
excited.
movie or my money 2 or 3 times at least. So,
Yeah.
and then in 6 months I get the DVD. So I'm a happy camper. So, I know we've jumped around a lot. I liked what we talked about the summer movies for now. Now there's another one coming out at the end of the summer, Cowboys and Aliens. That comes out in July 30th. Now I'm not aware of the comic. I know of it, but I've never really looked at it. But if you've seen the trailer at your movie theaters, you know it's just gonna be a fun summer movie. Just Harrison Ford and Daniel Craig. Enough said. You know, I mean,
And with so many good directors backing it, producing it, even if they're not having a hand into it, that in and of itself makes me think that this could also be a winner for
Sure.
the summer. That we're going to have a solid story. Of course, you're going to have a love story, but it'll be decent. I think you'll have a good sci-fi flick.
you bring up a good point. One thing I wanted to mention: I've had a lot of people, and we all know we're a little bit older. Justin and I grew up reading the Silver Age comics and stuff like that, never knowing that we'd see these things on a big screen. Now, does that mean the movies are always great? No, of course not. But when these people who are younger than us really, really complain about how bad the movies are, I'm like, at least you got to see that. In their eyes, they've never seen stuff not on the big screen. You know, they've never had that. They've always had. Well, I should say they've always had that opportunity. We never did. So
Your youngsters have
Exactly.
these opportunities we didn't have.
if you've got, like I said, whether it's good or bad, and Forrest brought this up one time, it doesn't matter if the movie's good or bad. The fact he gets to see his superhero characters from his childhood on the big screen is worth the price of admission. So
That's a good point.
Exactly.
Whether or not a story is good. Well, so now we've tackled the summer movies. We've tackled a little bit about the history.
I know we're jumping around a lot. We apologize. So
What's a movie that was based off of a comic? Guilty favorite of yours. People bash it, and you're just like, it's not my favorite movie, but boy, I liked it because it showed this thing. It showed that thing.
wow.
And for me, I'd have to say Scott Pilgrim.
Yes.
It's not
yes,
an old
yes,
thing. It
yes.
was a new one. I looked through comics. I didn't think that I would like the comics because I didn't like the artwork at first. But then, because it's got an indie feel.
Sure.
And I wasn't ever really into those types of indies. I was into Matt Wagner's Mage series, which I totally hope that they do a movie series, movie on. But once I got into the story, I realized it was story-based. And then I realized it's tongue-in-cheek. If you go in there and thinking that the comic is supposed to be completely serious, then you're going to completely hate that comic series. But once you realize it's totally tongue-in-cheek, then you'll really enjoy it. And I read it, and then I went to see it on the big screen, and I came out, and it flopped! But I loved it.
And
It was
you
so good.
you just summed up every summer movie. People go to summer movies, it seems like, and they get upset, oh, that sucked. But what were you really paying for? There's not going to be Oscar quality acting in these, okay? You go to the summer movie, you leave your brain in the lobby for 2.5 hours, and you have fun.
Yeah.
That's what a summer movie is all about. And that's why the ones on the horizon, Captain America, Cowboys and Aliens, that's what those are. And if you don't believe me, look at the success of Pirates of the Caribbean. That's, like you said, that series is based on just having fun and loving a character that was based on a ride. at an amusement park, you know? I mean, and that's the idea, is you go and you want to enjoy these movies. Now, like I said, we're not trying to bash the movies. You out there are going to have your own opinions. I'm sure that me and Justin are going to disagree on certain things. But if you go there and you enjoy it, more power to you. That's why they make the movies, you know? Some people like them, some people don't. You don't know until you see them. I agree. Now, you asked me my guilty pleasure. God, I'm not so sure if it would be...
It could even be like something way back. The
I would say
you said you liked.
I love the serials. I really love the series. One of my favorites was Spy Smasher, and Mass Marvel was a great one. And like I said, I highly recommend the Batman and Robin one from the 40s. I think I would have to say it's not so much a big screen as the Batman animated series. When you have Kevin Conroy, at the time I never knew who he was, he gave life to an animated Batman that was just so good, you know, and to see all the villains come to life and stuff like that, and then the series kept going, and then it started to run out of steam. But I have them all, and I watch them 100 times, and I still enjoy them as much as the first time I watched them. I'd say big screen. One of the ones that surprised me a lot was the original Blade movie. Here's a character in Marvel from the 70s who he didn't have a super amount of success, but Wesley Snipes breathed new life into him and made it and this is back before vampires were twinkly kids, but he showed vampires and fighting. It just showed a cool character that a lot of people didn't know that was in the Marvel thing. Now, does that mean they're going to greenlight a Brother Voodoo movie? Probably not. So.
Well, and finally, before we go on, a movie that you would like to see made into.
I would like to see. If I had to pick two, I would say I'd love to see DC able to get a Justice League of America movie together. I know they're trying because Marvel's
they had one, a TV.
Yeah, I remember. Oh God, no, I do. I remember that. I dated myself. I remember that. But that, or I would like to see. I was a big fan in the early '80s of Marv Wolfman and George Perez's Teen Titans run.
Oh,
I would love to see it because I love the new animated series that was out recently, the Teen Titans.
Yeah.
I love the old comic, and I would love to see Dick Grayson / Nightwing / original Robin is my favorite character in comics. I would love to see a Titans movie. If I had the chance to direct something like that, I would do that. I might redo Daredevil. There's a lot of possibilities. I wouldn't go with your average, typical stuff. If you had a chance to direct or have a movie from beginning to end, comic-wise, your total control, what would you do?
Oh, Mage.
Awesome.
The hero discovered, hero defined. He hasn't written Hero Denied yet, but the whole story when I read it in the late '80s, and then you find out that spoiler alert that he's a reincarnation of an idea of a hero, and then in the second series you start to meet other heroes.
Sure.
And it didn't do as well as the first one, but I think the second one had charm that pulled it into a decent story.
Sure.
Very much like how Star Wars and Empire, some people think that was the downer of the part, but it pulled the story together. For me, it would be a Mage.
I think that would be really, and I think you could do it justice. And the fact that he mentioned that, maybe some of you don't know that. There are, like I said, you've got your mainstream comics we all grew up with, and then there's the industry has gotten so big, there's so many different companies that can compete with Marvel and DC for good stories. Mage is one of them, and he's been around for a while, and I love the idea. Grendel would be another one. Would be a really good one.
The first run that actually ran in the back of the Mage.
Sure.
Stories.
I would actually like to go back to the Eastman Laird days and do Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I couldn't say it. I know we've had it on a big screen, and it's been, like you said, for the kids. The new animated one is actually very good. I enjoyed that one. But if I was going to do a Turtles movie, I would go back to the gritty feel of the Eastman Laird stuff that I grew up on and just show you how brutal they could be, and just to see that. It would be probably more for me to see it on the big screen.
I can understand that. I would actually even really like to see some of that in how Sin City and how 300 was filmed. Well, I'm going to just say Sin City because it was silhouette. It was light. It was dark. if you could do, and I'm going to show some images up here, if you could do what they did with Super Street Fighter 4, where they gave it kind of a wash, a washed look. If you could do that and do either an animated or a mosh between or a mash between the 300 movie and that Super Street Fighter kind of feel, and have it black and white, I think that would be a nice feel. A good movie.
If you watch Sin City or you watch 300, the way Frank Miller draws, he has a very unique style, and I think the movie's nailed it. Like you said, almost it's just black and white, and you can't do things in color. If you do, you throw one color in, a red or something like that. But it was unreal how they did it, and Sin City was one of the best ones they did. I'm sorry, but Mickey Rourke playing Marv. Oh yeah, you know, it's just they really caught the feel. And there's another one on the way. It comes out next year. But like I said, again, the one thing I think that we had talked about stuff we'd like to see on the screen. I don't know if I'm necessarily a huge fan, but I would like to see it done. It's been a kind of a they haven't been able to have any success finding someone to do it. Is a Wonder Woman movie. Yes. You've done Superman, you've done Batman. You need the third person in that trifecta. You know, and I know they were going to do the TV series, and they canceled it even before it aired. But if you get her out there, you can start messing around with that JLA idea down the road, you know. And I think that's what maybe DC wants to go, because next year Marvel's superhero team, their first big superhero team, I know X-Men fans are screaming at me, but the Avengers were one of the first, is on the screen next year. So DC's going, okay, we gotta step it up. So. But again, I mean, God, it's just projects that would be cool to see you done. I know we could ask that question to 10 different people and get 10 different answers, you know. Yeah. And that's what I love about the comic idea, is that there's so many good ideas that you can come up with. And like I said, I had thought of one major. As soon as you said it, I'm like, oh God, that would be brilliant, you know.
Well, you know, let us know what you guys think about, and we'll wrap this up. You know, we've got areas for comments below, so leave us your comments. If there's something that you'd like to have us talk about, you know, give us some ideas. This is a burgeoning show, and
I know that we probably missed a lot of comics. You guys are probably saying that we're made into movies or that you want to do. And like Justin said, please leave your comments. Let us know. This is our first time out. This is like my second podcast, so I do apologize for being a little nervous and stuff. But thank you very much.
Thank you.
I look forward to doing another one.
And we're going to have a ton of links underneath this that will link you to other places, to other movies. And I hope you've enjoyed this. So this is Justin and Troy. Thank you so much for watching this, and we'll see you next time in Gamers Haven.